Hi everyone, in this video we are going to talk about how to use sig figs or how to apply sig figs after you've performed a number of different calculations. So if you did not watch our previous video on the different rules of figuring out if a digit is significant or not, you need to go back and do that, because in this video I'm just going to talk about how to use sig figs after you performed addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division. So let's start off with the easiest one, which would be our addition and subtraction. So addition and subtraction is very, very easy as long as you can add and subtract. The hardest part is you need to figure out the significant figures. So number one, you need to find the number with the fewest, okay, so fewest, smallest, significant figures, but here's the important part, past the decimal. Okay, it's only past the decimal. That's all we care about. You could have a billion trillion digits in front of the decimal. It does not matter at all when it comes to addition and subtraction. So let's say I gave you a problem. Okay, I asked you to add 2.58 plus 2.6 to 2.625. Very, very complicated problem. I'll even let you use a calculator. So the first thing you have to do is you go through this problem and you say, okay, I need to identify how many significant figures are in each one of my numbers. So we're doing addition subtraction, so I'm only looking at the digits past the decimal. So this one, I have two significant figures past the decimal. On this one, I only have one significant figure past the decimal. And on this one, I have three significant figures past the decimal. So this one right here, or this number, this is going to be my most important number because it's going to actually dictate how many significant figures I can use in my answer. But now I don't do anything else. All I did is just counted sig figs, and now I'm going to move on. So number one, determine sig figs. Number two, do math. Okay, so actually do this problem. Just add the three numbers together. So if you did that properly, you would end up with an answer of 7.805. Okay, so that's the number you get. Now, the last thing you do, step 3, is you apply sig figs. This is always the last step you do. I don't care if you have to add something, then multiply, then divide, then add again, then jump off the roof, and then do this, do that, whatever. The very, 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 very last thing you do is apply sig figs. You can never apply sig figs until the very last thing, and you only do it once, okay? So hopefully that made sense. All right, so now you apply your sig figs. We did our math. We know we can only have one digit past the decimal, so that's that number right here. So our correct answer ends up being 7.8. One number past the decimal, there's your beautiful answer. Okay, so there's how you do addition, subtraction. Really pretty straightforward. Number two, this is a little bit harder, but I don't know, not really. I still think it's pretty easy. So you have multiplication and division. And I want to clarify that. This is easy if you put time into it and you study. If you just try to memorize it 4 seconds before the exam, that's not going to work. But if you study, put an hour in, it's going to be easy peasy, okay? All right, so multiplication, division. Same thing as before. You find the number with the fewest sig figs. Okay, now this is sig figs total. We don't care about the decimal. We don't care about anything else. We're saying look at the entire number and determine which number has the fewest number of sig figs. All right, so let me give you a problem. So for this one, we're going to do 231.7. We're going to multiply that times 48.1, and we're going to multiply that times 2.184. All right, so now there's our problem. We identify the number with the fewest number of significant figures. So we count all of these. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4 sig figs here. This one has 3, 1, 2, 3. This one again, 1, 2, 3, and 4 sig figs, okay? Very simple. We didn't have any zeros. We didn't have to mess around with anything. That was very straightforward. All right, so we determine the number with the fewest number of sig figs. Step 2 is you actually do the math or solve the problem. That's probably a prettier way of saying it, but whatever. Do math. So now you multiply these three numbers together. Your calculator spits out a number that says it's 24,341, 7, 7, 6, and 8, okay? So then the very, very last step, just like we said before, it's the very, very last thing you do, is you apply your sig figs. So we know from the first thing that we can only have 3 sig figs in our final answer. So you go and do the math. You start on this left side, okay? You have to start on the left side and move this way. You can have 3, so you get 1, 2, 3. That's it. Those are the only ones that can be significant. Everything over here needs to be converted to a 0, so something that's non-significant. So now what we go through is we do this, so we end up with 24,000. This is the only part where you have to use your brain. You look at this number, that's a 4. 4 is less than 5, so it's not like we need to round up or anything fancy. We literally just rewrite this 3. Now everything else is 0, so you have 0, 0. But you cannot put 0.000 because now all of a sudden all of these numbers become significant. So that's super important. Don't do that. You stop right here. Again, remember, if you put that decimal down, now you've made those zeros significant. So that's not, you can't do that. You have to erase that. So you end up with 24,300, all right? So now, hopefully that makes sense. We're going to test it right here. I'm throwing a hard one right at you because you have some time to work it out. Talk to your neighbors. If this does not make any sense to you, talk to your teacher. Come make an appointment with me. But absolutely have a conversation about this because these are just rules that you have to follow. So here's the problem. You have those 3 numbers you need to add together. Then you need to multiply it times this number, 7.6134. Then you're going to multiply it times one other thing, 8.431. All right, what does that equal? I'm looking for your answer and apply sig figs. Go. All right, did you get an answer? Hopefully you did, but if you didn't, that is completely okay. This is not an easy problem. I went from like little example, and then bam, just hit you with something hard. So if this is not perfectly clear for you, please do not stress out. This is something that takes a lot of practice, but you absolutely need to put the time and energy into it. So just like with regular old math here, we're gonna start with our parentheses. So the first thing we're gonna do is identify the fact that everything inside here, right here, so I'm looking at these 3 numbers right here, these are all addition problems, okay? It's all just addition, so we're only going to look at the significant numbers past the decimal. So what I see here is I have 3 past the decimal, 2 past the decimal, and 1 past the decimal. So this one right here is going to be our winner. It's going to tell us that we can have 1 digit past the decimal once we determine this number. So we determined our significant figures, now we actually do the math. So if we add these 3 things together, you end up with a number that is 29.718, okay, and then we're going to multiply that times 7.6134. I'm literally just rewriting 8.431. Okay, so now we know that we can only have 1 significant digit past the decimal for this 29.718 number. So what you have to do here is come over here, use your brain and say, okay, this right here is my last significant digit, which means this is significant and this is significant, but these 2 right here are not significant digits because of this math problem here earlier. So I'm going to put little X's below those so that we remind ourselves. But this is the hardest part. You cannot just get rid of that 1/8. The 1/8 is still there. You have that number. You use it. You carry it through. And at the very, very, very end of the problem, that's when you apply sig figs. But you just have to mark it right now so that you remember that right now, when you look at that number, you know that the 2, 9, and the 7 are the only ones that are significant, and the 1, 8 are there, but they're not significant. Okay, so now this just becomes a simple math problem. And so when we're doing a multiplication problem, we remember that every single number is significant as long as they're considered significant digits, okay? So we're just calculating all of them. So this one here all the way on the right has 1, 2, 3, and 4 significant digits. This one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 significant digits. And this one has 1, 2, 3. Remember, it only has 3. These 1s and 8s do not count. So now again, this number is going to dictate how many significant figures we can actually have in our final answer. So we're going to use all 3 of those numbers fully, 29.718 times 7.6134 times 8.413. When we do that properly, our calculator gives us an answer of 1907.5561. Now, again, another hard part. I'm so evil, but this is something I wanted to make sure we talked about. If you go to this thing right here, this 1907, we know we have to apply 3 significant figures. So we have 1, 2, and 3. So what we would do in theory is cut that number off right there, and then these all become 0, right? But make sure you apply your sig figs. So let's try that. 1900, that's one option. So we have 1, 2 significant figures, but remember we're allowed 3, so this isn't a viable option. We could try 1907, that gives me 1, 2, 3, 4 significant figures, so again, that's not a viable option. What we have to do is round. This 0 needs to be bumped up because this 7 is high enough. So our final answer ends up being 1910, just like that. No decimal after the 0, just like that. So we have 1, 2, 3 significant figures. Remember, if you did this and you added that zero, that decimal, that zero then becomes significant. So make sure you do not do that, okay? I don't even want you to look at that. Erase, erase, erase. You can't even look at it. All right. Please tell me this makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, you've got to talk to your teacher. You've got to come email me or come make an appointment with me. I'd love to talk to you about sig figs. Yes, they're annoying. Yes, they're frustrating. But if we nail it, once you figure it out, it ends up just being so satisfying. So please, please, please make sure you study. Have a great week. Take care of yourself and drink water.